Lesson 2, Unit 4. The Project Support Plans, Part 1. The next set of plans are related to the support processes. These are the plans that facilitate the management of key components of the project and make it possible for the project to achieve its objectives. These processes are not interrelated and interdependent like the core process, although there is some level of interaction. There are 5 support processes and each one requires a management plan. These are team management, stakeholder management, information management, risk management, and contract management. In this unit, we're going to focus on 2 important plans, the team management plan and the stakeholder management plan. The team management plan is a plan to build and develop the project team. It is a process to turn a group of individuals into an effective team. The elements of the plan include the following: the responsibility assignment matrix, the capacity building plan, and the resource histogram. An important tool used in the team management plan is the responsibility assignment matrix. For each one of the WBS activities in the project, you need to identify the roles in your team for each activity. The most important role is responsibility. Each activity must have one person responsible for managing and completing the activity, either responsible for doing the work or responsible for supervising the work of a third-party individual or people, like consultants or vendors. The basic rule is to only assign one person as responsible, not 2 or 3. The other role is accountable. There must be one person who is accountable for each activity. In most cases, it will be a project manager or a technical manager. It is the person who has a level of authority and makes sure that the activity is completed according to the quality requirements. There can only be one person who is accountable. It is part of quality assurance to make sure that those that are responsible for the activity have someone who is going to supervise and monitor that activity is completed according to the plans. The next role is for those that need to be consulted or contribute with information and experience to an activity. The last role is for all those who must be informed on the progress of the work and any issues related to the activity. Not everybody needs to be in every role. As you can see in the chart, there are some activities that are where not all the people need to be involved. The matrix helps ensure that all the team members understand their roles and responsibilities in the project, which helps reduce conflicts and duplication of efforts. Converting the group into a team requires identification of the skills gaps and areas for development, both hard and soft skills. That is a conversation that the project manager will have with the team to identify the training areas that the team needs in order to achieve a high level of performance. The team must have the skills they need to be efficient and perform at levels that meet the demands of the project. Not all teams have all the skills they need. That is a reality. But what is important is to identify the skills gaps early enough in the project and build up those skills with training or other learning opportunities. That also means that you need to have a training budget. And for some projects that may be hard to come up, but you should identify other sources to fund your training needs. There might be some sources within the organization or opportunities where someone within the organization can provide training to your team. What is important is that you identify the critical skills your team needs and develop the capacity development plan. When you start looking at your team development plan, the first thing you need to do is identify the critical skills that are needed in the project. For example, it could be communication, collaboration, monitoring, coordination, sharing responsibilities, and even skills or problem solving. You can start with a simple survey to identify the skills baseline of your team. Then, based on the roles of that person in your team and the needs of the project, you set the development targets. The targets need to be agreed by the team and make sure they are achievable and within a reasonable amount of time. The goal is for all team members to close the gap and build the skills and confidence in communicating, collaborating, monitoring, coordinating, and other areas that need to be effective in the project. An important tool to use during the implementation phase is the resource histogram. This is a chart that maps the number of hours each team member is assigned in the project. Ideally, each team member assigned to the project is expected to work full-time, but the reality is that some will work more hours than others. As you start assigning the work, you will start noticing that for some people, they have been asked to work more hours than what they can work on a regular day. For example, The total number of hours in a month is about 160 hours. Assigning more work to the same person will only create delays or poor quality in the deliverables. In the chart for month 4, a team member has been assigned up to 200 hours. If the average work is 40 hours per week or 160 hours per month, then there is no way that somebody can work more time than they are assigned, and that is a problem. That means that you need to assign part of that work to another team member, and the chart will help you identify those team members that have been either over or under allocated to do the work in the project. And you need to act when the workload is not properly balanced. When there is no balance, quality is going to suffer. The project is going to get delayed and team motivation will go down. The next plan is the stakeholder management plan. This is where you will identify, analyze, and develop strategies to improve the relationships with the various internal and external stakeholders. The plan will map the levels of interest and influence of each stakeholder, and with that information, you will develop the strategies to build and maintain those relationships. A tool that you can use is the interest and influence matrix. The project team identifies all key stakeholders and ranks them based on their level of influence and the level of interest they may have. The levels are low or high and are assigned to each stakeholder in the matrix. You can even include the type of influence and the type of interest they have. This will help understand their priorities when you develop the stakeholder plan. Then, you need to place all the stakeholders into 4 categories. For example, a donor that has been identified to have high interest and high influence will go into category A. Another example will be the stakeholders with low influence and high interest. They will go in category C. Someone with high influence and low interest will be in category B. And a stakeholder with low interest and low influence will be in category D. The idea of organizing stakeholders into this category is that it helps you identify the type of strategies to manage relationships. And for that, you can use this simple matrix to map the levels of influence and levels of interest into 4 categories. For category A, the strategy is to manage closely. That means you actively engage a stakeholder by consulting and communicating on a frequent basis. For category B, the strategy is to keep satisfying. These are the stakeholders that have a high level of influence in the project, but the interest is very low. You need to satisfy their needs and increase the levels in the project. The other category is category C. The strategy is to keep informed. They have high interest and are supportive of the project. You need to keep them informed with regular reports and information on the project progress. The last category is D. These are stakeholders that have low interest and low influence. You should not spend time to build relationship with these groups. The only thing you need to do is to monitor for any changes in the levels of interest and influence. Here's another tool that you can use for some key stakeholders that you can need to change their view of their level of interest in the project. You can have one stakeholder who's completely unaware of that project is all about, but there might be a moment when you need this stakeholder to be supported. So you identify the desired position of where you want the stakeholder to be. You may have some stakeholders that are resistant because they have the wrong information about the project, but you need them to be supportive. Some of them may be neutral, but you need them to be in a leading role. They need to start taking an active role in the project. You can use a tool to identify key stakeholders and monitor the effect of your actions to help them move to the positions you need them in the project.